Next topic for us is customer experience and all of the, I guess, convoluted understanding of customer experience around the pharma industry. So at first, when we started to talk about this topic, it was a little bit of a rather convoluted conversation to understand what is it that we're going to be talking to you guys here, and what is the divide actually? Where is it happening? This is pretty much how we felt, and is my failed attempt to put in a word cloud together, but it actually ended up working because it talks about the complexity of customer experience in our industry. And from there, we kind of decided, okay, we're going to tackle this from an internal divide in the pharma industry. So we started kind of going on from there, and here we are. So, look, I think to start with, overcoming that big pharma divide internally and thinking about the customer centricity against organizational metrics. And if we just kind of get our heads around how do we ensure that our CX efforts are genuinely customer-driven rather than just fulfilling internal KPIs. So to start us with, Simon, can you share an example where CX has actually been driven from insights?
Sure.
Right off?
Thank you. So I guess first, KPIs can provide focus and clarity for a business, but different teams may have different KPIs, and so there may not be that clarity that you want. I think what we need to do is avoid the tail wagging the dog, in that if we have volume activity-based KPIs, they may actually work against the customer experience we're striving for. So I think that's an important concept. I think an example that will probably be common to all of us, we've seen the data that GPs are overwhelmed with multiple emails from industry, multiple visits from the same company. So they're really overwhelmed by their interactions with pharma companies. So we need to really understand and work in a more coordinated way internally, across brand teams, across different functions. One way of doing this is providing multi-brand emails, whether they're HQ or rep-triggered emails, multi-brand materials, so that we're providing fewer emails that may be meaning we reach our KPIs internally, but it's proving to be a better experience for our customers. So I think it's finding that balance. Similarly, having a curated, coordinated journey so that we are not sending 3 representatives in the same week. We've got a more coordinated approach. We're learning from previous experiences and providing more value whenever we do go in. So I think it's about having a coordinated approach, reducing the volume. While we may not hit the internal metrics, we're certainly improving the customer experience.
Yeah, it's the small steps that actually matter when it comes to customer experience. Nicole, let's move on with you. Think about the interpretation of NPS. We've heard a lot about NPS these 2 days. And beyond the number, what can you tell us about?
Yeah, I think the best teams, in my observation, in terms of using NPS, is really those teams are using the metrics or the customer experience metrics as a strategic driver for decision making and meaningful action, and not just a tick the box reporting aspect. And I think it's really important that we use metric stacks. So thinking about CX metrics from CSAT, NPS, customer effort scores, along with the KBIs that we may be looking for. And I think we saw a really nice example, or we've seen a couple of great examples. The survey from, I think it was Ausdoc yesterday, we look at a minus 68 NPS and we're all devastated. But it's a single number at a single point in time, and it's a really broad application of that question. And then we started to get teased with a little bit more insight. So we saw different age demographics had different scores that they gave us, and then we unpacked engagement factors, and then we identify its trust. So it's really important, I think, and Sumi said it very well this morning, that we are interrogating the why behind the score. The score doesn't tell us much. So I think, you know, to get the most out of our metrics, we really need to go deep and understand the why, and that's how we can identify the meaningful action. And at the end of the day, the compelling narrative is around the strategy or the impact, as Danny said before. The impact is so critical. So, you know, can we build a story in relation to we made it easier for our customers, customer effort score, which uplifted NPS, advocacy or customer satisfaction, and the business impact was increase in NRX, increase in market share. If we can't create that narrative, it's possible we've focused our efforts on customer experience that's not going to meaningfully impact our business as well as please the customers, and that's a lesson as well. So I think if we use that frame with metrics, we can really use metrics as the backbone of our brand strategy rather than tick the box scorecards that pop up monthly and we all have a look and go away and back to work. Yeah.
Thank you. And I guess, Nikki, when we think about the feedback that we receive when doing this type of exercise, have you faced any situation where feedback conflicts with internal KPIs?
Yeah, I think it's really important just to reflect really quickly on some of the things we've heard just now and also over the course of the last day and a half, and that we do need to move away from a metrics customer experience where we really are focusing on a number and really an internal measure. And we need to look more at a movement. So what are we actually doing to change and give the customer value and in fact then lead to commercial outcomes? And I think there's sort of an undercurrent, an unspoken undercurrent in our industry where we under-promise and over-deliver. But I read this lovely little piece the other day that says, research shows that reducing customer effort is a stronger driver of loyalty and trust than exceeding expectations. So I'm just going to remind you again that it's reducing the customer's effort. So it's not giving them more stuff. It's not over-delivering on something that they might have asked for. It's actually making their job easier. I will get to that question. There's just a couple of things I wanted to highlight. And the other piece was that we need to move our customer engagement and experience out of silos and into a more cross-functional component, and that is because we need to integrate all the information from the various channels, whether it be medical, whether it be commercial, surveys, market research, social media listening, so that we actually have the voice of the customer. And slightly controversially, there is very little information that cannot be shared across the business. And in fact, the insights are owned by the company, not by the channel, not by the function, I should say, not by the function. So with that in mind, you know, once we've got that information, then we can have cross-functional targets. We can have cross-functional goals and KPIs that meet the outcomes of the customer and the commercial outcomes as well. So now I finally get to your question, so thanks for your patience, everybody. But I think that when feedback conflicts with a business KPI, the first thing you've got to ask is it the voice of that customer? Is it the voice of that segment? Because obviously they have different strategic weight. And that's where segmentation is so incredibly important, because if we don't understand which one is which, then we won't be able to address it properly in the first place. But if it's a high-value customer and there's a conflict there, then the first thing we have to think is, well, hold on, have we got the right strategy in place? Have we addressed that the correct way? Do we need to adjust? And then, of course, we need to step away and go, you know what, we're not going to meet a KPI on this situation, but what we are going to do is we're going to give this customer, who is of high value, a really, truly meaningful experience. And if they are not a high feedback person, high value person, it's just going to be information that gets added to the overall scheme of things. It's going to be the bucket with which we draw some insights and feedback on a later date. But I think the most important thing here is that the purpose of customer experience is not to actually answer every question or to meet every KPI. It's to make sure that they walk away feeling that they have been supported and served, and that helps them with their business and ultimately helps us with ours.
Thank you, Nikki. And yes, certainly this isn't about volume. You know, the fact that we can capture feedback from one customer should be more than enough. And that's a good segue for our next big topic in terms of the divide, which is, first of all, the common understanding of customer experience inside the organization, and the common understanding of the customer itself, and how do we actually bring that feedback and those insights into action. Simon, in your experience, do you think internal teams see customers differently?
Well, I think we first need to define who the customer is. We need to align on that. Is it the doctor? And if so, which one? Is it the nurse? Is it the patient? And do each of the internal teams have the same focus and the same agreement on who we should be focusing on? So I think that's the first thing, is really understanding who the customer is and having that aligned approach. Then it's understanding what their needs are. And that could be quite broad across different segments, but then determining, okay, which segment are we talking to here? What are their needs and how are we delivering against those needs? So I think it's really about defining that and then having a common goal, having shared goals to be able to deliver against those and to deliver the value. And as I said earlier, it's about delivering the value, not having the KPIs forcing the activities. It's really understanding what they want and delivering against that.
Thank you. And Nikki, let's continue with, I guess, the execution part and how, for example, global strategies may influence the local activation of customer experience programs.
Yeah, there's definitely been a bit of push and pull as the evolution of these global strategies has evolved over many years recently, but there was very much a you must execute on a global level, you must do this exactly. But I think there's more flexibility now, and a global strategy does influence a local execution and vice versa. For example, I mean, the global strategy is about the what. It is the absolute imperatives that you have to have for a global messaging program. That is, we are efficacious, we are tolerable, we are safe. And to be a truly global brand, you have to have those elements. But the local strategy has to be about, well, how do we execute that? What channel are we using? What language are we using? How do we have to use cultural, local nuances to make that sing in the environment that we've got now? And I think that's the difference. But also, as a small affiliate, as we've all discovered, is that there are times when there is a sticking point, a little hiccup, a challenge that the global strategy hasn't addressed when they first put it together. And it's often the innovation and the work that goes in on a local level that actually comes up with a plan to deal with that. And it is our responsibility then feed back to global with that solution so that then they can review, they can improve if necessary, or they can actually then roll it out so that it becomes global best practice. And these are the things that it's that push and pull with the global that has to work synergistically. It has to be continuous. Otherwise, we can't actually work in a truly global environment.
Thank you. And lastly, on this topic, we talked about closing the loop and how important it is once we've explained the why to the teams and roll out these programs. How do we make sure that we deliver back the value that we promise when collecting this feedback? So how do we go about truly integrating those insights from CX into the brand strategy or the plans, Nicole?
Many different ways, and I'm sure many of you have done successfully different approaches, so I'd be interested to hear your perspectives at some point. I think we've heard about the importance of storytelling. So, yesterday in the change management, everything, the main action people were going to take was, use stories more. And I think we've seen today some powerful examples of that. So using storytelling in the brand strategy around the customer experience, perhaps you start with a pain point and then you articulate what the sales team's role is in overcoming that pain point, and then ultimately what we hope to achieve. So I think the tangible through stories is important. To build on what you were saying, Nikki, in relation to collaborating across teams and, getting these shared insights as well. Because I think, we're quite good at getting market research. Maybe we even have HCP insights, but our field medical and field sales teams are really the closest people to the customer in the business. And so why not use those insights and create a shared customer narrative? Why not build customer journeys together, identify moments that matter and humanise the customer together? And, it might be that you get an early adopter involved in that process. Maybe you like to get the biggest skeptic in the team involved in that because that signals to the rest of the team this is worth buying into potentially. And then I think finally in relation to the feedback loop, you know, there is nothing more rewarding, I think, for people working with customers to hear directly the impact that they've had and not just from what they've asked or heard about, you know, when a customer's actually sharing that. So I think to, you know, loudly and proudly share those examples in a feedback loop regularly is really a great way of getting everyone on board, feeling good about what they're doing, knowing they're making a real impact for the business, for the customer, for the patient, and ultimately having a single view of the customer and what our overarching goals are. Yeah.
Thank you. And as to start wrapping up the session, I think it's clear that customer experience is more than a metric. It's clear that I talked about it a little bit in the Omnichannel session where CX is more on the human side, on the human aspect of our customers, and it really or truly helps us elevate that Omnichannel experience that we're aiming to achieve from those basic metrics. And to leave you guys with some of the key takeaways we discussed earlier this week. First one is, I guess, go beyond the metric, look deeper past the NPS. Metrics like the CSAT can actually help you understand the underlying attributes of a particular touch point and truly help you elevate that experience across, for example, medical events. We talked a lot about the one shared common understanding of customer. There's a lot of data behind understanding the customer. And as we bring programs like customer experience, we're actually adding a lot to that equation on the data side. And it gives you that sort of extra layer on the human side to pair up with the insights and the engagement metrics that we've collected over time. And I guess the last is just being able to be quick and agile in implementing those pieces of feedback that we get right back into the strategy, piece by piece. The small change in an interaction can go a long way with our customers. And we've got a couple of minutes for you guys to do any final remarks.
I was just going to pick up on what Nicole said about the feedback loop. We have done a number of different surveys with customers and internally, and what I find that your harshest critic is your best opportunity. So we have followed up with those people and articulated that we've heard what the issue is, and then continue to engage with them to talk about solutions that we put in place. And that really has such a huge impact, particularly when someone is really upset with the company or an internal policy, whatever it is. But being able to say that we've listened to you and we've addressed it and we've actually come back to you to tell you what the solution is very powerful. So I totally agree with what Nicole said.
It gives you quick actions. Nicole, Nikki, any last comments?
No, I just think there have been a lot of common themes throughout the couple of days that we've had together. I've learned a lot through this, so I'm really appreciative to everyone. But I would say, you know, Amanda touched on it. I guess I would call it the vanity metric, you know, that misleading metric that could make you think something's going well. I think really being mindful of that. I'll come back to yesterday we talked about from change management. It's no different whether it's customer experience or strategy, whatever it is, calling out what you want to achieve and you know, tipping in customer insights into that, and then actually purposefully upfront calling out how you're going to measure it meaningfully, and then as you talked about, creating the feedback loop so you can action it and keep going. I just think that's so critical. So I that's reinforced in my brain from the last couple of days. Yeah.
Sure, Nikki, 20 seconds.
That's okay, that works for me. I would just say that customer experience is a long game, not a short game, and that while there is changeover in customer-facing roles, the experience they have with the company and the support and the information and the consistency is the long game, and no matter who is front-facing, that can continue. So if we're doing it correctly and we're giving them the value that they're after, then that will proceed long after the person who's first engaged with them or first interacted with them. It's the long game, not the short game.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thanks.